All right, a very good warm welcome and good morning to you from wherever you are watching us from. Thank you for giving it KBC Channel 1. My name is Ram Aguko. Thank you very much. This is Good Morning Kenya, the best place to be each and every morning. Now, you're just in time for the very first interview of the day. And this morning, we'll be talking about persons with disabilities. We shall be focused on PWDs this morning as we look into, to understand the challenges that the persons with disabilities face as we, talk about disability issues and mobilizing support for the dignity, rights, and well-being of persons with disabilities. This morning, we'll be also putting into focus on the International Day for Persons with Disabilities that will be taking place on the 3rd of December this year. Remember, this event or this day is something that is commemorated or celebrated each and every year. Well, to help us understand this concerning persons with disabilities and more with regards to the preparations that are there, I'm joined by Honorable Mohammed Hussein Gabbow. He is the Executive Director for the National Council of Persons with Disabilities. Karibu sana.
Asante.
And thank you very much for finding time to join me. You can be part of this conversation. Remember, the hashtag is Good Morning Kenya. Tag me at Ram Aguko, at KBC Television is the station handle on Twitter. At Jane Wamboy is my colleague's handle. Our SMS line is 20154. Start with the word Channel 1. Tell us your name and where you are watching us from. Now, Honorable Mohammed, I would like to, start with, first of all, the history, because I am aware this event, International Day for Persons with Disabilities, started all the way back in 1992. But now, looking back into the years that have been there, now we are talking about now 27 years. Celebrating persons with disabilities. How far are we with regards to this track that we have reached so far?
Thank you. This day began in 1992, but Kenya, we acted the National Council for Persons with Disability Act in 2003, and domesticated the UNCRPD, the United Nations Convention for Rights of Persons with Disability, in 2007. So basically, we are about, how many years now? About
from
16 years, 2003. About 16 years.
Yeah.
Where are we at this period? One, must know that there are issues which have actually been thought about by Parliament and Kenyans. So as we were able to get the Act of 2003, what necessitated that? Basically, persons with disability were neglected, even at our own society's level. There are cultures, issues of culture, stigma. People thought they could do nothing about their own lives, so they were left to die. So, and again, the ministries or MDS, the ministries, department, and agencies did not mainstream issues of persons with disability. So it was a well-thought idea that the National Council for Persons with Disability be created so that it actually cares for issues of persons with disability across the country as a one-stop shop.
And I'm looking at it also just as a nation in Kenya, but also in the global perspective, just for the benefit of the viewer. Then why do we, talk about the International Day for Persons with Disabilities? How important is it?
Yes, thank you. And I was just coming to that, because basically you have about more than 1 billion persons with a disability in the world.
There's so many, by the way, in terms of the numbers and the statistics there.
Yes, they're about between 10 to 15% of every population are persons with disability. If you take that with our census that has just come out, that gives you about 6.3 million Kenyans with disability in a normal environment. I'm not even talking about Kenya, where there are multiple accidents, where many people die and only people who die are reported. So basically, we're talking of a group that has a population of 6.3 million Kenyans who are disadvantaged and who need help in one way or another.
And we fail to not recognize these numbers.
Well, these statistics are there, but I don't think we did very well, even as a council, we must admit, and as a country, to capture that data in the national census. I think we owe up on that. So this day is meant for them to create awareness, to tell them what programs the government has for them, and see also what we are able to give them that day. It's not just about awareness creation. The day will be held in Kibwezi in Makueni County on that December. We keep on rotating these days across the counties each year. So last year it was Kisumu. The other time it was in Nairobi. So we keep on rotating this day. So basically, what do we need to? What are we going to achieve? Just to tell Kenyans the number of people we have, persons with disability, see what challenges they are facing, and see how this can be mainstreamed within the society. Because persons with disability live with us. They don't live in a vacuum. So it's me and you to take care of them. But you must understand what their needs are, and you need to talk to them. They really want to enjoy life like any other Kenyan. And they need to they need to go to school, they need to go to work, they need to walk, they need to drive, and they need to enjoy life in its fullest.
There are people like us, what we need and what they need.
For sure, there's no change. But what do we see them as? You've seen parents who are tying their children tethered on trees, tethered on cages, in bomas. Some of them left completely unattended.
Some are left in very closed doors.
Yes, they are closed because what happens is that the parents also have to make a living. For example, let's go even to the rural area, where a mother has to go to fetch water, fetch firewood, go to the market, and maybe also have a small canteen or shop where she wants to do business. And she has maybe a CP, a cerebral palsy, or an autism child who actually needs 24-hour care, who also she needs to feed.
Yeah.
So you can imagine what options is the mother left with. She's
is
unable to employ anybody. So we're simply saying, how many of these institutions do we have that care for such children? And many other. So the government, in its wisdom, has given a budget. Each year we get about 1.7 billion Kenya shillings, and there are programs which are running. But I can assure you, this is not enough even for 1% of persons with disability. For example, we have an estimated 400,000 wheelchair users across this country. 400,000. We are able to provide in totality an assistive devices, what we call assistive wheelchairs, crutches, hearing aid, visual aids, and etc. And we are able only to provide 3,000 each year.
Which is 2,000 is a drop in the ocean.
We are talking about 400,000 wheelchair users alone. I've not included those with crutches, hearing aid, etc. That will give you about another 2.2 million Kenyans who will be needing assistive devices. If I am able to provide less than 3,000 per year, then where are we?
It means as a nation, we really need to put more emphasis
Yes.
than what we are doing now
Yes.
into focusing persons with disabilities and
Yes.
supporting them.
And the government is doing well. We are among the best countries in Africa, where even a budget has been given for persons with disability. For example, we are talking about cash transfer programs, where we are giving money to 47,000 families, households. And this, they get 2,000 shillings per month. That totals to 1.19 billion Kenya shillings. It's a step forward for Kenyans. We're giving bursaries. And each year we give about 2,500 students. But again, we work closely with other government agencies. We are grateful to Kenya Pipeline, who is sponsoring almost 284 students, 81, I think 297 somewhere there, students of persons with disability, two actually from each county. So basically,
it's a move.
It's a move. So basically, we're grateful to the country. Budget is always an issue in every sector. I'm sure here too, you have your own issues on budgetary. But we're grateful that the government is doing something.
I'm looking at the discussion yesterday that was taking place at the
at KICC.
Concerning the wage bill. Still, a big problem there. I'm aware you'll be attending
Yes,
that.
I'll attend this morning, and I've been there yesterday. You understand about the issues of wage bill, where most of our money, rather than development, is going to, we've been told a large number of Kenyan who are paying taxes are actually paying salaries of very few people who enjoy at the top. A sad affair. We collect our taxes, and less than, 1% of Kenyans enjoy that salary.
And I'm looking at, this 1% of Kenyans, we're talking about the common wananchi. But, we have, within this bracket, within this 1%, we also have persons with disabilities who may not even get access to some of these.
How many of these people, and these are the issues where the SDG is speaking about, employment inequalities, education, health issues, NHIF. We are talking about giving a universal health care. Who are the beneficiaries? Who deserve most? For me, to be very honest, if I were to start a universal health care, I'll declare persons with disability to be given a free health care, and that should be our pilot project. Me and you, who needs this more? This is where we are failing, and we must speak this.
And this is why this conversation is very much important. You should be part of this. SMS, Twitter, start texting, start tweeting. This conversation is quite important. I'm looking at last year. We had the theme that was there for the International Day of Persons with Disabilities, and we will let's pick it up from what happened last year, and because it should be progressive from the across the board. There was focus on the empowerment of persons with disabilities for inclusive, equitable, and sustainable development as anticipated in the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development. That was last year. So how far are we? How was the build-up from that theme with regards to inclusivity, equitability, and sustainable development as anticipated in the 2030 SDGs? And what feedback did you get, from that time last year till now that we're having, still the Persons with Disabilities Day happening next week?
Okay. As a government, what have we done? Some of the SDG programs talks about, let me just pick one, like the inclusiveness in employment. What we've done is, for example, Kenya, we have developed a port where we're able to connect persons with disability CVs to potential employers.
Okay.
And there's a database for that. We match you, we give you the CV and all that. And we're doing that with a number of organizations which have also been sponsored by DFID and other donors. So basically, persons with disability, first we must give them education. Because this is the only hope. It may not be the only hope, but I believe 90% of their hope lies in education. They may not be able to do manual jobs in factories, in farms, driving and all that. So this is the category of people who actually needs to be given education. But let's look at our education sector. How inclusive is it? As the SDG goals demand. We are creating what we call a special school, dropping a child with a disability in the midst of able-bodied students, have a teacher who has never been trained properly, maybe going for short courses on issues of special education, where we do not have even a college, a specialized college that can handle those issues, equipments which are supposed to be used. There's one young boy who scored, I think, 400 marks, and he said, look, I would have done better in the exam because I was writing with my mouth if I would have been given an extra time to finish my exam. What are we doing about this? So basically, I shouldn't be here complaining about what the government is not doing, because we are part and parcel of the government.
We should be having, the solutions.
Yes,
that
we are now going to crack the whip. Let me just be very honest. We are going to develop inspectorates across the country. It's not that we're going to develop. Last week, we have been training over 150 personnel from the ministries and departments on issues of inclusiveness. So basically, we'll train these people to make sure that now schools must comply with the curriculum that benefits persons with disability. They must be able to give the assistive devices to those children so that they are able to function well in their environment. We're talking about what we call a reasonable accommodation for each one. A reasonable accommodation for persons with disability means that that person must be given all necessary equipment and facilities for him to function like any other. We are not doing this, and actually most of the schools, the curriculum developments and everything have failed. And as a country, I think we need to wake up so that persons with disability enjoy like any other person.
Last year we were having that, the theme for empowering persons with disabilities.
Yes.
Have we had an improvement from that time last year till now? Because for us to move forward, we should be looking at what steps we've made so far.
Thank you. Empowering persons. For example, I'll want to give you an example. There have been appointments by the government, because empowerment means maybe giving a job, giving some programs that are related to persons with disability. Yes, we are improving. We have the National Gender and Equity Commission Vice Chair appointed, who went through a competitive interview, and he's been picked as a commissioner. We have CAJ, which is also another commission having a person with disability. We have a PS we have a PS who is a person with disability, and all boards actually have a person with a disability. That has been implemented. The government has also given tax exemptions to persons with disability. But again, we have issues where tax exemption has always been delayed and all that. But basically, tax exemption, in terms of if you're a person with a disability, you are able to import a free duty car. And that has been able. The government also has talked about ACPO, access to government procurement opportunities.
Right.
And I'm also putting on notice some of my colleagues, the CEOs, where we are seeing adverts are not friendly to persons with disability. They are not getting contracts as stipulated by Treasury. We will make sure that this will happen. I've seen some of the advertisements, and I think
we need to review them.
Actually, it's not about reviewing. The law is very clear. We're not going to review anything. What we'll need to do is to demand that people are given their share, their fair share. We're talking about 30%, which has been a presidential directive. And here you are as a CEO. We are unable even to monitor you. I've been writing, some few letters. Let them tell us how much of the procurement benefits have been accrued to persons with a disability.
And do they respond?
50% responded. There are some we are talking. Of course, I cannot mention most of these issues.
But you can say there is 50% cooperation.
50% cooperation. And I'm looking at especially works in roads, and all this seems to be preserve of few. Right. And we'll want to demand that persons with disability can also construct code.
Let's look at now, because now we've looked from 2018. Yes. Let's look at now from now 2019. This year the theme is promoting the participation of persons with disabilities and their leadership, taking action on the 2030 development agenda. And in Kenya, the day will be observed in all counties, with the national celebrations being held, as you said earlier, at in Kibwezi, yes, Makueni County. So how far in terms of preparations towards this agenda? And we shall be talking about the theme even in this conversation.
Yes, we are good. I think the preparations are in high gear. We've also been sending teams. We have a committee that is in charge of that. The government of Makueni, The county government of Makueni is doing very well. They have given support for that. They'll be providing things like lunch, venue, transport. The county commissioner has promoted us with bringing persons with disability across. So basically, we are good and prepared for us as a ministry, because we do this with our parent ministry, the Ministry of Labor and Social Protection. We are prepared. We are able to provide whatever is needed for that day. The venue is ready. We are geared to meet. We are going to give assistive devices, millions of shillings, Kenya shillings in terms of bursary allocations. We'll be rewarding persons with disability. And there are our partners, huge number of NGOs and partners who are ready to go there. So I hope KBC you'll be there that day, at least to give some coverage. Yes.
All right. And speaking of promoting the participation, now that theme specifically, promoting the participation of persons with disabilities and their leadership.
Great.
In Kenya, is it felt, because now we're taking action with regards to the 2030, agenda that is there?
Now, on the leadership, let me just be very honest. There could be issues. There could be issues between leaders in terms of promoting issues of persons with disability, what interests come up. For example, the leadership comes from what we call the DPO, the Disability People's Organizations.
Yes.
They have elected their own leaders under the umbrella of UDPK, United Disability People's Organization. That's an umbrella organization. And what we need to see here is there must be cooperation. We should not be a complaining nation. Just normal. In every sector, we keep on complaining and talking about what has never happened. We never look at the positive part of
what could happen.
Of what could happen. And suggestions are not coming up. They will always talk of personalized issues. They will always talk of delays of things not happening. It's true, some of their complaints are genuine. But I think this team is great. We need to promote their participation. For example, what we are currently now doing is those DPOs, we are giving each one of them 1 million Kenya shillings to facilitate their participation in issues of persons with disability, create awareness and all. And again, we are going to give about another 47, one CBO in every county, give them about 500,000 Kenya shillings so that they are able to, understand, participate in county issues, making those laws exactly at the county assemblies to empower them. Because most of persons with disability are believed, perceived that they are poor. That could not be true. But again, you tend to think they are the most poor, the most uneducated, they are unable to do anything.
They're the ones who are suffering the most.
They are suffering most. I can tell you there are persons with disability who are very rich. There are those who have higher positions. But sometimes, and I have just to be honest, they forget their disability when they go there. They forget completely that they've been part and parcel of that. So sometimes when you are elevated to positions and when God has given you something and you're a person with disability, let's not forget where we came from. Let us see how we can empower. I'm glad some of them are doing that, but some of them have really forgotten. And again, we have senior people in governments who are still hiding their own children at home because of stigma. I am a minister, I'm a PS. How could I have such a child,
like
in the open? It's like a taboo. So basically, the leaders must now come up, declare issues of disability, and again,
Honorable Hussein, I love how you, you are putting, it's like a SWOT analysis.
Yes.
You're giving the strengths, the weaknesses, the threats that are there, the opportunities that are there, weighing it out all at the same time. But
Yes.
even as you continue, there's something that I would like us also not to fail to talk about. We have the SDGs the Sustainable Development Goals. You mentioned a few earlier on,
Yes.
But I would like to mention one of them with regards to decent work and economic growth. With regards to this, sustainable economic growth will, require societies, to create the conditions that allow persons with disabilities to have, quality jobs, equitable jobs, everyone.
Yes.
How far are we with regards to this as one of the SDGs that are there?
Thank you. For Kenya to implement that, we have a clause in our act, per se also in our constitution, that 5% of every employment must be persons with disability, including here, KBC. I expect you to give 5% of the jobs that are there to persons with disability.
You should segregate it automatically before anyone gets anything.
Yes, and it's not about giving them the job of sweeping, tea girls and all that. It must start from across the spectrum. Now, where are we in that? We are less than 0.1% across the country, because the Act says progressively. So Kenyans are very good in reading those lines progressively. Now we've changed the Act. The Act says now expressly 5%. So that 5% will now be our gauge to make sure that persons with disability get a decent job. And we are going to do this even in the private sector. If the private sector or KBC will not be able to employ persons with disability, then you'll just have to give us some money to be able to do some work for persons with disability. So as a country, we've been talking to the Public Service Commission in every employment, this is a demand. It's not, and it's a right for persons with disability. In every employment, we must get that 5%.
And how far are we, in terms of looking into this 5%? Do we have any criterion that is there, that can be put in one organization to ensure that they have this 5% within themselves that you can be able to look into?
Yes, because we have a disability mainstreaming committee in every MDA, including the counties. They are available. They always give us a report. I want just to tell you, the National Council for Persons with Disability, we are at 43% of persons with disability, because we cannot just be preaching and saying that everybody must get 5%. Then, as the institution in charge of persons with disability, we are less than even the 5%. So for us, we are at 43%. And I'll promise in the next 3 months, we'll give a proper statistics. I'll come back here with a proper data to tell you.
From these organizations?
From across, from ministries, the 20 ministries, the over 300 parastatals and agencies, sagas. I'll give you a data.
You should come back. We need to do that follow-up.
And actually, we will also come with other people who we are working on that. I know the inclusiveness of 5% is an issue.
Yeah.
We really want to get more time to discuss on employment, issues of taxation, registration. These are key areas for persons with disabilities.
Now there have been conversations with regards to how we involve persons with disabilities in humanitarian actions. How far are we as a country, especially in Kenya, in including PWDs in humanitarian action? Because at some point it can be challenging for them, and even for the people that want to be passionate with these kinds of activities.
Most of the DPOs, people who are working for persons with disabilities, are persons with disabilities. We'll give you many examples. I know UDPK, the CEOs is a person with disability. ESPK, an organization for mentally challenged, is headed by CEOs. So so many, Handicap International and all that. I beg to disagree with you that it's not a challenge for them. They've been, we'll give examples. And I can assure you next time when we come here, specifically give us more time, and I'll come around with who is who in person with disability, so that
we can be able to pinpoint exactly their involvement.
Yes, they're involved. They run huge NGOs. they run DPOs, they are senior officers in those humanitarian organizations, and maybe we need to have some data on that.
All right.
Yes.
Now, I would like us to talk about the education sector.
Yes.
There has been lots of debates with regards to how we are building our infrastructure, our school system, you know, in terms of access, and not just a school, also any building that is built that favors
what we call
PWDs.
built environment. Yes.
Exactly. Now, picking up from the education sector, because we need to involve them and make them feel as though, you know, persons with disabilities also are one of us, they're part of us. How far are we in giving giving persons with disabilities that equal or equitable environment for all of us?
To be very honest, we are nowhere near that. Sometimes laws are created and not followed, especially in our country. The main, I love the built environment debate. The main parliament, which has created this law, carries its own disability members on a mock to one of their conference rooms, and that is the law-making organ, where some members who are with a disability cannot even access some of the chambers.
If it starts from parliament,
if it starts with parliament,
how do you expect it to happen?
A rural school in Mandera. A rural school, you are talking about a rural school in Mandera or Turkana, when it is just here. So we must be very serious. There are enough laws in this country to make sure that education is inclusive, that they are given proper equipment, but it is not happening. So why this team calls you for, you know, a leadership to action? We are asking those who are in charge, because disability issues must be mainstreamed within your own environment. We are asking the Ministry of Education to make sure every child, it does not speak of so-and-so's child. It speaks of every child to have a right to education in a proper environment that fits the child. We're talking about leaving no one behind. That child must be equipped fully. And I think we need to carry out this debate so that those children with disability enjoy life like any other. They are not. Actually, what is happening is that we create a wing of a school, call it a special unit, just because one or two children with disability are there, and that is it. The teacher doesn't even understand what he has to do with that child. They have no sitting, even a proper sitting structure. They have no wheelchair. We have found children crawling to school.
And sometimes accessing the classrooms can be a problem.
Yes, and even we have found some schools denying admissions to children with disability at this century. You're being denied to go to school just because you are disability. The teacher says, no, I am unable to handle this. That's a crime.
But this, you know, these are some of the obstacles that we need to put away as a nation. Accepting.
So the way to move forward, just to be quick, I'm sure you have other things. To move forward.
Yes.
We're talking about inclusion.
Yes. That
we are not really ready to separate, you know, where we just have a special school for persons with disability. That is being discouraged. We're talking about integration. Okay. But as much as we integrate, there are special needs for each category of that child. Those needs must be taken care of. We must also have special training teachers, colleges, specifically for those children, especially for a category that you know that you cannot integrate. We're talking about integration, but we can't integrate everything. What do we do with the few who cannot be integrated? Interesting
question there. Now, you've talked about Parliament here, and I want to go even deeper. Last year, this year in June, we have the Secretary General Antonio Guterres Yes. And there was a launch at, he launched the United Nations Disability Inclusion Strategy yes. in line with his commitment to make the UN an inclusive organization for all. Now, we are talking about the UN specifically, right? How far is it with regards to this launch of the UN Disability Inclusion Strategy that we are since June till now? What steps have we made?
Thank you. Actually, if you go to the UN conferences and all that, any conferences, not just UN, you go to Europe, it's a proper where everyone actually is taken care of. You need to have a wheelchair. If you need a wheelchair, it is there. If you need to have a translator, if you have to have a sign language. Like, for example, this morning, over 800,000 deaf persons are missing this conversation. I'm sure you have a sign language interpreter. You see, that's an exclusiveness of, I don't know if she is here. And we're talking about issues of disability. You can imagine. And we don't have a sign language interpreter. 800,000 are not listening. So inclusive is not just about wordings. Gutierrez talks about it, me and you talk. We must begin it here. I'm sure. It
should be felt from the ground.
Yes. And each one of us must play that role. We must play actually that role. So I believe they're doing well. The UN is doing well. What we are also simply saying is that even the donor communities, the donor community, there's a package on issues of disability. You will not get grants these days if a component of issues of disability is on another. Well done, excellent. We are simply also telling the government that the grants for persons with disability in every ministry must be increased, and they must be specific for a given role. So basically, this inclusiveness is something very important. And if I were to ask you maybe here now to this podium, if you had somebody with a wheelchair, I don't see a ramp here. We're talking about inclusiveness, leaving no one behind. You've just left somebody with a wheelchair on the floor behind. You can't be able to climb here. So basically, it's a small thing. So what the National Council for Persons with Disability do is there's a training for this. We'll do an assessment. We will be coming here to do an assessment and tell you what you need to improve. Have a sign language interpreter, have ramps, have translation for the visual and all that.
All right.
And again, what we are finding is you give sign language during the time of news. Are you telling us persons with disability just listens to news? They don't want to enjoy some of your programs? But again, we need to move forward.
Interesting question. And like I said earlier, I like how you bring the strengths and all the weaknesses all at the same time. Let's look at the Disability Act of 2003, because we have discussions moving around that. Maybe you can be able to touch on that. How far are we in terms of adjustment that orders that have been there under Section 24 of the Persons with Disability Act?
Yes, if you look at the adjustment orders, it has to have an express permission of the minister in charge, if you've read it well.
Yes.
So, like for example, you cannot serve an adjustment order to government institutions unless you get an express permission from the minister. Now, in the new act, that is changing. Funny enough, how long has the new act taken? From 2015 up to 2019.
2015 to 19,
is it a priority in Parliament? I've been a member of Parliament, and whenever our personal interests are there, we do it in 10 minutes, 15 minutes. That has always been there, and I don't want to be controversial about that. But again...
And the votes normally come there.
Yes. And we are there in full number, develop some kamukunjis and all that. I wish they can develop, the speaker can call for a kamukunji on the disability bill to be passed. It is so crucial to people with disability. I have been personally to the majority's leader's office on this, and I'm appealing. Yes, and I'm appealing to him. This bill of persons with disability, please let us pass it. 4 years down the line.
Still under discussion.
Not a discussion.
Do you believe it will be, passed?
I don't know.
Will it be passed into law?
Many other things are coming. BBI is already there. It is coming. Maybe it will pass before the bill of the persons with disability. There are other issues which have been brought to Parliament. They have passed. They have been created into law. So basically, it's very important again to take care to really, feel for these people so that this act, can now have some clause which we are able to act.
Well, just as a side discussion, yeah, because we talk about special interest groups.
Yes.
We've had so many discussions with regards to laws that are being made in Parliament,
yes,
and some that have never passed through.
Yes.
If you talk about special interest groups, some laws like
the
persons with disability, two-third gender rule.
Yes.
Do you believe that at some point our priorities are misplaced? Do we at the same time look at some things as more important than others?
It is true, and I am not afraid to say that the agenda driven in parliaments have interests, big interests. That is the truth, and it will remain so. You understand, I don't know whether that's still in a court issue, but you understand the issues of house allowances. How quickly was it passed? Don't you think it's an interest?
All right.
This is a straightforward. You don't even need to ask me that, man. Yes, that's a straightforward. It's a straightforward. Bills that come have to have some huge interest and have to have support. Bills of the two-third agenda, PWB bills, and all that. Basically, they have no one to agitate for them.
No one.
Yes, but
quite sad indeed.
We're asking people like Dr. Sankok, who is a member of parliament on special interest for PWDs.
He has been here before.
We are talking about, no, he was the chair of the National Council for Persons with Disability. He's gone there. We're talking about Mheshimiwa Senator Mwaura, who has been in parliament and who has also been there. Come on, let's have these bills. It is time they pick those issues because that's what they should be doing at the moment. I know they've been talking and doing some few things, but without this bill, this is why we'll counter them.
Honorable, how can we prevent or reduce discriminations against persons with disabilities in Kenya?
Number one, we must understand that there are people like us, and we must internalize at individual level, me and you. Let's see what little we can do. First of all is acceptance. We must accept these people are with us, and they don't need sympathy. They don't need help. They don't just need, donations. These are people who can work. These are people who are like me and you. Let us empower them. How do we empower them? Let's give them what belongs to them. We are saying the 30% of procured goods in this country give to their companies. Let's give them. Don't start putting handles. I've seen some parastatals, and they are saying persons with disability companies, must comply with this. These companies are registered under ACPO. There shall be no further conditions on that. You're not going to talk about experience. You're not going to ask about the money. Give them the job. I have seen, and people are developing, this company must be registered 3 years. This company, the special interest groups, especially for companies of persons with disability, once registered under Treasury ACPO, access to government procurement opportunities, they must be given the job. The job must be reserved for them and given. We know, and let me say, we know there are businessmen in these countries who are not even persons with disability, who are taking advantage of those groups of people, using their companies to do business, etc. This will stop. And I'm asking persons with disability, do not allow people to use your companies. Come on, a person is getting a contract of 20 million, and you give your company for 10,000.
Honorable Mohammed, I would like us
Thank you.
to wrap this conversation up
Yes.
with regards to the International Day of Persons with Disabilities. Maybe you can give us your final word in a minute as we bring this discussion to a close with regards to this, and maybe as you continue to talk about that, you know, the stakeholders that are involved in these preparations for IDPWD. Final word in a minute.
Thank you.
Also.
In 1 minute.
Yes.
First of all, let me take this opportunity to invite you to that day.
Thank you.
At Kibwezi, and all Kenyans who are able to make. We will be displaying, you know, a lot of things. We'll also be giving some of our program activities. For example, we'll be giving checks across Kitui, Machakos, Makueni. We'll be giving school fees checks. We'll be giving assistive devices. We'll also be doing free screening for persons with albinism. We'll be also be giving protective clothes. We're talking about cancer screening and all this. The Ministry of Labor and Social Protection is in charge. We have other organizations. We have CBM, we have UDPK, we have World Vision, we have KCB, Equity Bank, Cooperative Bank, who are all geared to in that committee. So basically, we are happy that they are supporting issues of personal disability. My final words will be to Kenyans. Please accept persons with disability. Let them come out. Do not hide them at home. It's not a curse. It has nothing to do with the curse. It has nothing to do with, you've heard of men where when a child is given birth and he has a deformity, the man divorces the wife, thinking now it's the wife who brought the child.
The wife is bringing problems.
The wife is the problem. That's a stigma. The wife has no problem, and you have no problem. That's how that child was supposed to be born. So let's accept this child. Let's stop those kind of divorces, stigmatizations, and include these children. He or she could be the future president of this country. I can assure you we have persons with disability who are great, and me and you where we are today, there are people who are greater than us. Actually, we may not be able to. We have pilots, we have engineers, we have perfect doctors who are persons with disability. Maybe, who knows, the next president may be a person with disability in this country.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
That is Honorable Mohammed Hussein Gabbow, the Executive Director, National Council for Persons with Disabilities. Thank you very much for shedding light, and I thank you for what you're doing. Keep it up. I wish you the best even in your endeavors.
Thank you.